The journey to Mount Moriah. Long ago, in a time when the earth was still young and the stars seemed to shine especially bright in the dark night sky, there lived a man named Abraham. He was a man of great faith, gentle and thoughtful, who loved God and trusted him deeply. Abraham had a son named Isaac, a boy who brought joy to his heart and light to his days. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in soft shades of pink and gold, God spoke to Abraham. It was a quiet moment, filled with the gentle whisper of the wind and the distant songs of evening birds. God asked Abraham to take his son Isaac, the one he loved so dearly, and go to a place called Mount Moriah. There, God said, Abraham would find a special task awaiting him. Abraham listened carefully, his heart steady and calm. Though the journey seemed long and the task ahead uncertain, he trusted God's voice that came like a soft breeze through the trees. He woke early the next morning, the air cool and still, and spoke quietly to Isaac about their journey. Isaac, sensing the importance of this time, nodded silently and prepared with his father. They set out together, leaving behind the familiar green hills and walking into a world touched by the early light of dawn. The path to Mount Moriah was not an easy one, for the land rose and fell in gentle waves, the soil soft beneath their feet. Abraham led the way with steady steps, Isaac close by, carrying what they would need for the journey. As they walked, the silence was a companion, wrapped in the sounds of nature all around them, the rustle of leaves, the distant murmur of streams, and the occasional call of a bird, all blended into a peaceful melody that seemed to lull the world to rest. Abraham's thoughts were quiet, held gently like a tender secret, and he spoke little, saving his strength for the journey and the moment they would soon face. At times, Isaac looked up at his father, his eyes wide with innocent curiosity and deep trust. Abraham's face held a soft smile, reassuring and calm, a steady presence on the winding road. Together they climbed higher, the air growing cooler, the sky stretching wide above them like a great protective blanket. The sun rose slowly, its golden fingers reaching out to touch the earth and warm their backs. Shadows shortened, and the birds sang a little louder, as if encouraging their steps. Abraham carried wood on his shoulders, the pieces tied carefully so they would not fall. Isaac bore a bundle of firewood too, his small hands steady and sure. When they reached the foot of the mountain, they paused to rest. The view was quiet and still, the world spread out beneath them like a soft quilt of green and brown. Abraham's eyes held a calm strength, and Isaac sat close, feeling the solid earth beneath his feet. The gentle wind brushed their faces, carrying the faint scent of wildflowers and fresh earth. As they began to climb the slope, Abraham's heart remained steady, trusting quietly in the timing and the peace of the moment. The mountain rose slowly ahead of them, its rocky face bathed in the warm glow of the morning sun. Each step they took was careful and measured, like a slow dance with the earth beneath them. Along the path, wildflowers nodded gently in the breeze, their colors soft and delicate. Birds flitted from branch to branch, and occasionally a small animal would scurry quietly through the underbrush. The world seemed to move with a gentle rhythm, matching the slow, calm pace of father and son. As they reached a high place on the mountain, Abraham stopped and looked around. The land stretched wide, open and still, touched by the soft light of the day. He set down the wood carefully, arranging it with thoughtful hands. Isaac watched, his heart feeling the deep quiet and the steady presence of his father. Abraham spoke softly to Isaac, words both simple and full of meaning, though we do not know exactly what he said. There was a tenderness in his voice, a quiet courage that filled the space between them like a gentle embrace. Isaac listened, calm in the face of the unknown, trusting his father completely. Together they prepared a small altar from the stones around them, placing the wood in the center with careful hands. The mountain air was clear and cool, and the sky above them stretched wide and open, a canvas of soft blues and whites. Abraham's eyes met Isaac's, and in that moment, a peaceful understanding passed between them, silent but deep. The story tells us that as Abraham was about to carry out what God had asked, a voice called to him from above. It was a moment filled with light and calm, a sudden hush in the world around them. God saw Abraham's heart, steady and true, and sent a gentle command to stop. Abraham looked up and saw a ram caught in the bushes nearby, its horns entangled among the branches. With a thankful heart, Abraham took the ram and offered it in place of his son. The mountain was filled with the soft sounds of nature once more, birds singing sweetly, the wind whispering through the trees, and the sky watched quietly over the scene. Isaac stood beside his father, safe and unharmed, and the two of them felt the calm of God's care surrounding them like a warm blanket. The journey to Mount Moriah was a slow and gentle one, marked by trust and quiet courage. Abraham and Isaac walked together, step by step, into a story that would be remembered through the ages, a story of faith, love, and the deep, peaceful trust between a father, his son, and the God they both honored. As the sun began to set behind the distant hills, painting the sky in soft shades of pink and lavender, Abraham and Isaac made their way down the mountain. Their steps were light, their hearts full, and the night wrapped around them like a soft lullaby, carrying the story gently into the quiet hours. The mountain stood still and strong, a silent witness to the journey, and the stars began to twinkle softly above. And so the tale of the journey to Mount Moriah rests now, peaceful and calm, waiting to be told again in the gentle hush of evening, beneath the vast, endless sky. The deepening twilight wrapped around them like a gentle shawl, cooling the warmth left from the day's lingering sun. Abraham and Isaac moved slowly down Mount Moriah, the earth beneath their feet softened by the quiet hush of evening. The scent of pine and earth rose faintly as the mountain exhaled the last breaths of daylight. Their journey back to the land they called home was unhurried. Each step felt lighter than before, borne not just by their physical strength, but by the unseen weight of an enduring faith. Abraham's eyes, usually so deliberate and steady, now held a glimmer of gratitude and awe. Isaac walked closely beside him, his spirit unbroken, the unspoken questions in his heart soothed by the calm presence of his father. As they descended, the stars began to crown the sky, tiny diamonds scattered across the deep indigo. The cool night air played softly with the edges of their cloaks, a whispered tune that mingled with the distant calls of nocturnal creatures stirring in the shadows. Somewhere, a nightingale sang its tender song, a melody that seemed to celebrate the quiet miracle of the day's events. Abraham paused for a moment at the base of the mountain, glancing back up toward the summit. The silhouette stood stark against the starry sky, an eternal monument to courage, obedience, and divine promise. There, in silent vigil, the mountain seemed to hold the very essence of that profound moment, a reminder that faith, even when tested to its deepest core, would find its reward. Isaac's gaze followed his father's, eyes reflecting the stars and the mountain's shadow. It was as if in that quiet exchange everything they had journeyed through was spoken without words. The boy reached out and took his father's hand, their fingers intertwining with quiet certainty. Here, in the shadows of Mount Moriah, they shared a bond stronger than the fear one might have expected. It was a bond crafted of trust and unshakable love. Together, they moved on through the twilight fields stretching away from the mountain's foot. The earth was cool beneath their feet, and the grass whispered softly as they passed. A gentle night breeze carried the faint scent of wild herbs and the distant warmth of wood smoke from a nearby village. These familiar fragrances were like a comforting embrace after the solemn stillness of the mountain. As the path wound its way through the quiet landscape, Abraham's voice broke the silence once more, but this time it carried a softer, more reflective tone. He spoke of promises, not just those made long ago, but of the promise of new beginnings, of the many generations yet to come. His words were blessings carried on the night air, gentle as the rustling leaves, filled with hope and anticipation. Isaac listened attentively, the flicker of a smile touching his lips for the first time since the morning. The weight on his young shoulders seemed to lift bit by bit, replaced by the comforting light of understanding. They looked to the horizon, where the first hints of dawn awaited, quietly weaving the promise of tomorrow into the fabric of the night. Their journey home was no longer just the return from a mountain, but the beginning of a new chapter, a chapter written in faith, trust, and the unbreakable bond of love between a father and son. Under the endless canopy of stars, the land whispered ancient secrets of endurance and hope, and the mountain, distant yet eternal, stood as a steadfast guardian of those timeless truths. As the first blush of morning tinged the sky with soft hues of pink and gold, Abraham and Isaac reached the familiar threshold of their home. The village was stirring awake, the sounds of life slowly returning, the distant low of animals, the soft murmur of voices carrying through the crisp morning air. These sounds welcomed them back, wrapping them in the warmth of family and community that awaited just beyond the open door. Inside, the hearth awaited, a symbol of stability, comfort, and the cycle of life continuing onward. Abraham's steps were steady as he crossed the threshold, Isaac close behind. The sacrifices and tests of the heart were behind them now. Ahead lay the quiet blessings of peace and renewal. Together they would nurture the seeds planted on that sacred mountain, watching them grow through seasons yet to come. The mountain's lesson lingered, a call to trust in the unseen and hold fast to faith, even when the path ahead seemed uncertain. It was a lesson etched not just in stone or story, but in the quiet heartbeats shared between father and son, a rhythm that would guide them and those who followed in their footsteps through every dawn and dusk of their lives. And so the journey to Mount Moriah came to rest, not as an end, but as a beginning. Under the awakening skies, surrounded by the gentle pulse of life, Abraham and Isaac stood together, their hearts knit in a bond timeless and true. The mountain faded behind them, silent and still, but its story whispered on the wind, carried forward in the faith of generations yet to come. As the sun climbed higher, casting a gentle golden light across their village, Abraham and Isaac felt the comforting embrace of routine and the familiar. The cobblestones beneath their feet, worn smooth by generations past, greeted them quietly as they walked, the rhythm of their steps a steady drum in the morning calm. Birds called softly, their melodies weaving through the crisp air, telling stories of hope and renewal. Their neighbors, busy with daily chores, paused for a moment, sensing something unspoken in Abraham and Isaac's countenances. There was a quiet strength in Abraham's gaze, a lightness that had not been there before, and Isaac's eyes shone with a newfound clarity like polished glass catching the sun. Without words, their community received them, embodying a shared respect for the sacred trust between father and son. Its stones still held the warmth from nights past, a hearth not just for fire and food, but as a sanctuary where stories were told, lessons passed down, and faith rekindled. Abraham fed the fire, watching the flames dance softly, like a silent witness to their trials and miracles. Isaac seated himself nearby, the quiet crackle filling the room, steady and reassuring. They settled into the peace that comes from survival and understanding. The weight they once bore, the heavy uncertainty and the shadow of sacrifice, lifted. Now replaced was a lightness, a soft radiance born from knowing that faith, in its deepest form, does not demand blind obedience, but invites a profound trust in the unfolding of life beyond sight. Abraham's thoughts drifted to the promises whispered by the mountain's peaks, the vow that their lineage would grow, a testament to the trust between the divine and humanity. He knew that their journey was etched not only in the soil beneath their feet, but in the hearts of those who would hear their story in days to come. Their path was a bridge between heaven and earth, past and promise, fear and hope. Isaac, feeling the steady pulse of life and the gentle rhythms around him, embraced a quiet gratitude. There was a new understanding for him, a growing awareness that their walk towards the mountain was also a walk towards an awakening within. It was an awakening to the mysteries beyond immediate sight, to the power of faith threaded through hardship, and to the enduring strength found in love that refuses to break. Outside, the village hummed back to life. Children's laughter wove through the streets as they chased each other under the watchful eyes of elders who understood the value of stories carried forward. The trees swayed in soft agreement, their leaves whispering ancient secrets carried by the wind. The earth itself seemed to breathe, steady and eternal. Days turned gently into weeks. Abraham and Isaac resumed their rhythms, but carried within them a quiet transformation. Their faith was no longer abstract or distant. It was tangible in the way they met daily challenges with calm assurance. In their interactions, a subtle humility showed, one born from having stood at the edge of something vast, then returning, touched and changed. The story of their journey spread slowly through the village and beyond. It became a tale told at twilight fires, a lesson woven into lullabies. Young and old listened, not just for the tale of a mountain or a test, but for the deeper invitation to trust in what one cannot always see, and trust in the strength that comes from shared faith. In the quiet moments, when the sun dipped low and the sky blushed with the last light of day, Abraham would sometimes take Isaac's hand, their fingers intertwined, speaking volumes without a single word. These were moments filled with gentle reassurance, an echo of that profound journey where trust eclipsed fear and love conquered uncertainty. Through seasons of harvest and rest, their home became a place where faith grew quietly, like tendrils of a vine reaching toward the sun. Drawn by the calm radiance around these two souls, seeking comfort and counsel, Abraham and Isaac met them with open hearts and soft words, reminding all that the greatest strength often lies in surrender, and that the most profound faith is lived in the simple acts of hope. As the years unfolded, the memory of Mount Moriah remained a silent guide within them. It was not a distant monument, but a living presence, a breath in their prayers, a quiet light in times of darkness. It anchored their hope and shaped their legacy, a beacon passed gently from father to son, and from son to those yet to be. The mountain's lesson was clear: life moves in cycles of challenge and grace. The unseen hand that once stopped Abraham was not one of judgment, but a call to deeper trust, a summons to carry forward a legacy of faith that embraces doubt alongside assurance. Each step on their path was a prayer, each breath a declaration of their unbroken journey towards something greater. In stillness, the story settled softly around them like a shawl woven of light and shadow. It reminded them to walk gently through the world, to listen to the quiet voices of the heart, and to hold fast to the promises that outlast the ages. Though the road was long and often uncertain, they knew they would not walk it alone. Thus, within the gentle rhythms of their days, Abraham and Isaac found their peace, not in answers alone, but in the sacred dance of faith and love. Theirs was a journey neither beginning nor end, but an enduring thread in the tapestry of time. And so, under the vast sky where stars would one day trace their ancestry, the two stood quiet and united. With hearts open and spirits entwined, they carried the mountain's lesson forward, ever a testament to the enduring power of trust, faith, and the love that binds all beyond what eyes can see. The days grew longer, and the seasons shifted quietly in their cycle, as Abraham and Isaac continued their gentle journey, not only toward the mountain that had become the symbol of their faith, but deeper still into the quiet chambers of their hearts. It was as if every step taken carried the weight of the skies and the gentle pulse of the earth beneath their feet. The world around them unfolded in soft hues and tender light, inviting them to move with patience and grace. Isaac, growing in age and understanding, noticed more than ever the subtle rhythms of life. The wind whispered ancient songs through the branches. The river murmured stories of time and renewal. The stones beneath their feet held the stillness of centuries. In these things he found a profound silence that spoke as clearly as any voice, a language of faith that required no words, only presence. Abraham, too, carried a quiet strength, as if the years had distilled his spirit into something luminous and serene. His eyes, once vibrant with youthful fire, now held a calm certainty. There was no rush in his steps, no impatience in his gaze. Instead, each moment was met with a gentle acknowledgement, a soft surrender to the unfolding mystery of their path. They watched the sun stretch its golden fingers across the land at dawn, and later set in a blaze of amber and rose. In these daily miracles they found reassurance, reminders that beyond every challenge or doubt, there was light waiting patiently to be embraced again. The village behind them settled into its own quiet rhythm. Children's laughter echoed like a lullaby through the lanes, mixing with the soft murmurs of elders who gathered beneath the ancient olive tree. These keepers of wisdom preserved stories like precious gems, their voices weaving bonds of memory and hope between generations. From time to time, travelers would arrive at the threshold of Abraham's home, drawn mysteriously to the sanctuary it had become. They came seeking comfort, answers, or simply the soothing balm of shared faith. Without haste or grand words, Abraham and Isaac welcomed them with open hearts, their presence offering a refuge where worries could be laid down. Here, faith was not a burden but a light, flickering gently to guide weary souls through darkness. The place hummed softly with prayers that rose like gentle incense, blending gratitude for blessings given with quiet pleas for strength in the face of uncertainty. In these sacred moments, the story of Mount Moriah was not just remembered, it was lived. It became an ever-present thread woven through their days, a compass pointing toward trust and love beyond what eyes could see. One evening, as stars began their silent vigil in the deepening sky, Abraham and Isaac sat side by side on a low stone wall. The air was cool and still, carrying the scent of distant cedar and wild thyme. Abraham's hand rested lightly on Isaac's shoulder, a touch filled with tenderness and shared resolve. "My son," Abraham whispered, "our journey was never just about reaching a place. It is about the journey inward, toward all that is unseen but deeply known." Isaac leaned into the warmth of his father's presence, feeling the steadiness that had become his anchor. "I understand now," he said softly, "that faith is like the mountain, still, enduring, even when the path is not clear." Abraham nodded, his eyes reflecting the flicker of a small lantern nearby. "Exactly. We walk not because the way is easy, but because love leads us forward, and trust lights the steps." In the days that followed, the two moved with a newfound ease, their spirits buoyed by the quiet teachings of endurance and grace. They no longer sought answers in the distant horizon alone, but found them blossoming within each shared smile, each breath taken in calm acceptance. As the village continued its steady pulse of life, birth and growth, stories told and retold, seasons cycling in their endless dance, the legacy of Abraham and Isaac intertwined, like roots beneath the earth. Their story became a living testament to faith's gentle power, a reminder that even amid doubt and struggle, the heart can find its true home in waiting and trust. One morning, as mist curled softly among the hills, Isaac rose early and walked alone to the edge of a nearby stream. The water flowed cool and clear, reflecting the awakening sky. He knelt beside it and let his fingers ripple the surface, watching how the water moved, never stagnant but always changing. In that quiet moment, Isaac felt the presence of many who had journeyed before him, whose footsteps were echoed in the whispers of the earth. He sensed, too, the enduring call to faith, not as a destination, but as a path to be walked gently with humility and hope. Returning then to his father's side, Isaac carried with him a calm certainty. Abraham greeted him with a smile, wordless understanding passing between them under the stretch of morning light. Together they rose, their steps light but unwavering. Each carried the mountain's lesson within, the lesson of trust that transcends sight, of love that endures beyond the questioning, of faith that blossoms quietly in the soil of patience. Their journey, never truly ending, continued as a song sung softly into the wind, a soft call to all who listen, to walk gently, to trust deeply, and to love unreservedly, even when the way is veiled in mystery. And so, under the vast embrace of sky and earth, Abraham and Isaac moved forward, not toward an end, but into the everlasting flow of faith's sacred journey, holding fast to promises born not of sight, but of the heart. Days folded softly into nights as Abraham and Isaac continued their path, woven tightly with moments of stillness and breath. The mountain no longer loomed like a distant goal, but instead resonated within each pause, each quiet exchange between them. One morning, as mist curled like whispers around the hills, Abraham shared a story rooted deeply in memory. He spoke of a time long before they had set foot near Mount Moriah, when faith itself seemed a fragile sapling, bending in uncertainty but never breaking. Isaac listened intently, not as a son receiving wisdom from elders, but as a companion learning the contours of trust and belief through shared silence. "Faith," Abraham said softly, "has never been just about mountains or places. It is in the earth beneath our feet, in the rhythm of our hearts, in the gentle echo of prayers repeated unseen." Isaac nodded, feeling the weight of those words settle quietly inside him. The sanctuary they had built was more than stones and shelter. It was a living breath, a place where human hearts met the divine. This understanding deepened their daily rituals, lending a sacred tenderness to even the simplest actions. The villagers, too, felt the subtle shift. Their visits grew less like interruptions and more like circle gatherings around a hearth of shared hope. Children would arrive with curious eyes, their questions not demanding answers, but inviting reflections. Older travelers carried burdens that softened in Abraham and Isaac's presence, as if the gentle cadence of their faith whispered healing. One afternoon, as a golden light filtered through ancient olive branches, Isaac sat beside Abraham beneath the wide sky. The air was warm, but carried the coolness of early evening, a reminder that endings contained beginnings. "I sometimes wonder," Isaac murmured, "if our journey will ever truly end, or if it simply unfolds forever, like the stream by which I found quiet before." Abraham's gaze held the horizon, a line both near and immeasurable. "Perhaps," he replied, The journey is the destination. Each step taken with love and trust folds us deeper into the mystery, until the mountain is not something to climb, but something to become. Isaac felt a peaceful joy rise within him, a gentle flame kindled by companionship and the unspoken promise of faith's embrace. In that moment, the mountain was not a burden of sacrifice, but a mirror reflecting the steady light of enduring hope. As twilight deepened, stars began their silent vigil overhead. The sanctuary's lanterns glowed softly, casting their warmth outward, a gathering of light in the vast quiet. Travelers paused on the path, drawn toward the welcome, their footsteps merging with prayers whispered into the night. Abraham stood at the threshold, watching the constellations ripple like a sacred map. He felt the ancient story of Mount Moriah pulse with new life, not as a tale frozen in time, but as a living breath, carried forward by those who walk humbly and trust deeply. "Love is the steadfast flame," he whispered, voice low as the night's hush. "It burns without demand, without end." Isaac joined him, their hands briefly touching beside the doorway, a silent vow renewed beneath the watchful eyes of the stars. And so, their journey continued, not toward a mountain to be conquered, but within the landscape of hearts open to wonder and grace. The sanctuary stood firm as a beacon, its quiet song calling all who would listen to walk gently, trust freely, and love without reserve. The story of Mount Moriah was alive in every shared breath, every humble step, a timeless melody whispered on the wind, inviting all toward the enduring flow of faith. The night stretched gently over the land, deep and soft like a slow breath. Abraham and Isaac sat side by side upon a smooth rock, the campfire's glow warming their faces against the quiet chill of evening. Above, a tapestry of stars unfolded, each point of light shimmering with stories too vast to hold, but too intimate to ignore. Abraham watched the flickering flames, their movements steady yet unpredictable. "These flames remind me," he said softly, "of our own faith, sometimes steady, sometimes flickering, but always reaching upward, seeking something unseen." His eyes never left Isaac's face, searching for the boy's quiet understanding. Isaac nodded, his gaze shifting between the fire and the starlit sky. "It is strange," he began, "how the mountain we sought is no longer something distant, but rather something I feel inside me, like a quiet stillness that rises when I stop chasing and simply listen." "Yes," Abraham agreed, "it is in those moments that the true journey begins, the one within, where steps are no longer measured by distance traveled, but by depth felt and hearts opened." His tone was calm, infused with a deep reverence. The small sanctuary they had built near the fire took on a gentle glow. Crafted not just from stones and wood, but from hope and trust, it stood as a symbol of something greater than themselves. To the villagers who gathered around, it was a place of rest. To Abraham and Isaac, it was a space where earth and sky, man and divine, converged in quiet conversation. Through the night, stories flowed like a cool stream beside them. Tales of unseen strength, of courage too humble to make noise, of love that did not demand or bind but simply burned steady and true. Abraham shared another memory, from times before the journey, when doubt still whispered and fear shadowed faith. "I once thought faith was a mountain to be climbed, a prize to win, but now I believe it is a stream, never-ending, always flowing, sometimes gentle, sometimes swift, reshaping the land yet never losing itself." He looked to Isaac, whose youthful face now held a peace deeper than many years. "And the mountain?" Isaac asked, his voice barely above the crackle of the fire. "The mountain is the flow itself," Abraham replied. "It is not a place on a map, but a rhythm inside the soul where trust beats steady, even when the path is uncertain." The villagers listened, drawn to the quiet majesty of the evening's conversation. Among them were those burdened, weary from life's harsh demands, and others eager for something they had yet to name. They came with open hands and searching eyes, finding comfort in the shared silence as much as in the spoken words. As dawn approached, painting the horizon with tender hues of rose and gold, Abraham and Isaac rose slowly, their shadows stretched long behind them, merging with those of the others who stayed, wrapped in the sanctuary's embrace. Before continuing, Abraham reached out, placing a hand on Isaac's shoulder. "Our journey is not finished, my son. It is a river stretching infinitely in all directions, inviting us to flow with it." Isaac smiled, a gentle glow of understanding lighting his features. Then let us walk, knowing that wherever we go, the mountain of Moriah moves with us, within every step, every breath, every beat of our hearts. Together they stepped forward into the morning light. The path ahead was quiet and unmarked, weaving through wildflowers and whispering grasses. The air was crisp and full of promise, the simple melody of birdsong rising like a prayer. The sanctuary remained behind them, steady as a heartbeat in the village, a beacon for all who sought hope and connection. And though the mountain itself was unseen, its sacred presence rippled through everything, through the earth beneath their feet, through the sky overhead, and most of all, through the unspoken bond that flowed between father and son. Their shadows danced gently on the path, stretching forward into the embrace of a new day. Here, faith was no longer a destination to reach, but a journey to live, one carried softly in the heart, echoed in the quiet steps of those willing to trust the unseen light. And so, under the watchful silence of dawn, their journey continued, endless as the stars and tender as the flame that burned within. In this sacred unfolding, the mountain of Moriah was not a place to fear or conquer, but a living pulse, inviting all who listened to find their own way home, illuminated by love without end. The path before them stretched softly into the morning light, dew clinging to blades of grass like tiny jewels, and the air held the crisp promise of a day renewed. Abraham and Isaac walked side by side, their footsteps quiet on the earth, the silence between them steady and whole. Isaac carried the memory of their sanctuary gently inside him, not as a fixed place, but as a quiet flame that flickered in the center of his being. It was a small, warm pulse, something he could return to whenever the world felt vast or uncertain. He understood now that the journey was never truly about reaching an endpoint, but about moving with a sacred rhythm, one that trusted the unfolding moment. Abraham's eyes were soft beneath his brow, and he looked at Isaac not only as a son, but as a fellow traveler, one whose heart was learning to beat with the universe, rather than against it. The unfolding light around them wrapped them in a shared belonging, as if the mountain itself breathed with their steps. "Do you see it now, Isaac?" Abraham's voice was gentle, the words a simple invitation rather than a lesson. "The mountain we sought isn't something to conquer or possess. It moves within us, in every breath and every pause. It is the pulse of trust that never requires answers, only presence." Isaac nodded slowly, his eyes tracing the soft outline of clouds floating above. He felt the truth of those words like a current under the skin, quiet but unfailing. Together they spoke less and listened more, to the whisper of the wind, the distant call of a bird, the silent language of the earth beneath their feet. In this the mountain revealed itself as a tender companion, neither harsh nor demanding, but steady and patient. As the morning deepened, the path guided them toward a grove of ancient trees, their trunks wide and knotted like old hands folded in prayer. Here Abraham paused, resting his palm against the rough bark. A peaceful strength seemed to flow up from the roots, passing quietly into his bones. "This place," he said softly, "reminds me that the mountain is not only within, but also all around us. It lives wherever we nurture hope and kindness, wherever we open to love, even when the way is unclear." Isaac reached out, his fingers touching the bark, feeling its deep texture, its life. "So the mountain is also a shelter?" "Yes," Abraham smiled. "A shelter for the weary and a guide for the uncertain. It is made of moments like this, still, strong, and patient." They settled beneath the shade, the world holding its breath around them. Time seemed to fold gently, wrapping the two in a quiet cocoon carved from trust and understanding. Isaac leaned against the tree, resting in this new awareness that faith was not a fortress, but a living space within the heart. The village behind them stirred into the quiet morning, footsteps and voices weaving into the natural hymn of the new day. Abraham and Isaac could hear the distant greeting of herbs and hearts coming alive. Their world felt vast and whole. Abraham's voice broke the silence once more, soft like a ribbon unfurling. "Remember, Isaac, the mountain is kind. It does not rush us. It waits for each step, each heartbeat, and every breath. It welcomes the quiet moments just as it does the storms." Isaac's gaze lifted to the sky where the sun, now golden and steady, began to touch the edges of the clouds with light. In that moment, everything seemed both immense and intimately close, a paradox held gently in time. As they rose to continue, Isaac felt the mountain's rhythm threading through him, an unseen pulse connecting flesh and spirit, earth and sky. He walked with a newfound grace, each step an offering, each breath a prayer. The road wound onward, embracing them with soft hills and murmuring streams. The landscape itself felt animated by the same sacred pulse they had come to understand, where every stone and leaf held the story of the journey, not as a path marked by conquest, but by unfolding trust. Words grew sparse as the day wore on, but the silence between Abraham and Isaac deepened into a shared knowing. They spoke in glances and in the gentle brush of hands, in laughter quiet as a breeze, and in the calm certainty of being together. Abraham's stories now seemed less like lessons and more like gentle invitations, memories woven into the present moment, a soft guide through the uncharted terrain of the heart. "Do you feel it, Isaac?" Abraham asked at one point, eyes searching the horizon. "The mountain sings not just through us, but with us." Isaac closed his eyes, listening inward, and the song rose like a thread binding them to everything around. It was a melody tender and unending, a hymn to the sacred rhythm they had come to cherish. As the sun began to slope toward evening, their journey led them to a quiet valley where wildflowers nodded like sentinels in the fading light. Here Abraham stopped again, lifting his hands in a silent blessing. "This too is the mountain," he whispered. "The valley, the flowers, the dusk itself. The mountain is not a distant dream, but the soft earth beneath our feet. It is the breath we share with all that lives." Isaac smiled, the weight of his earlier questions now carried lightly in his chest. He understood the mountain as a living presence, one that invited kindness and courage in every moment, however small. They built no new sanctuary here, for the valley itself seemed to cradle them, a sacred space born from the earth's gentle embrace. Instead, they simply sat in the quiet, allowing the journey's meaning to settle deep into their bones. Night descended with a hush, stars blossoming above like infinite points of light. Abraham reached for Isaac's hand, their fingers interlacing in quiet strength. "Watch the stars, Isaac," Abraham said softly. "They remind us that faith is not about seeing everything at once. It is about trusting the light that glimmers in the darkness." Under that endless sky, the mountain was a gentle pulse, a loving current flowing through them, through the earth and into the silent heavens. It was no longer a place to reach, but the ever-present rhythm of the heart's own journey. As they finally lay down beneath a blanket of stars, Abraham's voice rose once more, a whisper carried on the night air. "The journey continues, my son. Always. Faith is the river that flows through every step, every breath, and we are its travelers, humble and free." Isaac closed his eyes, feeling the river's steady flow within him. The mountain of Moriah had transformed from a distant summit into a living home, a sacred rhythm, a pulse of trust and love that would accompany him wherever the path might lead. And so, beneath the quiet canopy of stars, father and son rested, their spirits intertwined with the endless journey of faith, a gentle, ongoing song without end. The night carried on, quiet and deep. The stars twinkled softly, ancient eyes guarding the silence. Abraham felt the pulse of the earth beneath him, steady and calm, like a slow heartbeat echoing in the vastness. Isaac's breath was light and even, his young chest rising and falling in time with the gentle rhythm of the world around them. They lay side by side, their hands close but not quite touching, as if respecting the delicate space between youth and experience. The sky seemed to hum its endless song, a lullaby woven from light and space. Abraham spoke again, his voice a soft murmur in the cool night air. "Faith," he said, "is not a blaze that burns fiercely and then fades. It is a steady flame, glowing quietly, warming through the coldest nights. It is the trust that even when we do not see, the light remains." Isaac listened, his eyes reflecting the shimmering stars. He felt the truth in his father's words settling into him, like seeds ready to root. The mountain, the sky, the earth, they were all watching, witnesses to a journey beyond the steps taken on a path. A gentle breeze stirred the leaves above, and the shadows seemed to dance with a graceful rhythm. Abraham reached out, brushing a stray lock of hair from Isaac's forehead. The gesture was tender, a language without words. In the stillness, Abraham continued, "There is a story unfolding, not one written in words, but in every breath, every heartbeat. You carry it now. It is part of your own journey, a journey not just to places, but into the depths of your own spirit." Isaac tilted his head toward the stars, his heart opening to the vast quiet. The mountain's presence felt like a whispered promise, a conversation between the earth beneath them and the heavens stretched overhead. It was the kind of promise that didn't demand answers, only the willingness to listen and be present. The silence grew fuller, richer. In that space, Abraham and Isaac shared an understanding that needed no voice. The journey to Mount Moriah was no longer measured by distance or landmarks, but by the gentle unfolding of trust and love. The morning came slowly, folding light into the valley like a soft embrace. Golden hues stretched across the horizon, warming the earth and sky. Abraham stirred, his eyes meeting Isaac's in the dawn's quiet glow. "Come," Abraham said softly. "The mountain calls us again, not to climb, but to be," feeling the earth steady beneath their feet. The valley held them with a subtle strength, as if cradling the lessons learned in the night. Every step forward was a meditation, a slow unfolding into the mystery of the day. The trees watched over them still, ancient and wise. Their branches swayed gently, inviting calm and presence. Abraham and Isaac moved with reverence, aware that the mountain's call was not a destination, but a gentle returning. To kindness, to courage, to the quiet light within. As they walked, Isaac felt the softness of the breeze, the warmth of the sun, the steady rhythm of his own breath. Each moment was an invitation, a chance to be fully alive in the sacred dance of life. Abraham's voice was a quiet thread weaving through the morning air. Every day offers a new light, a new way to understand the strength within us. Remember this: kindness is not a weakness, but a powerful force that shapes the world quietly, like water carving stone. Isaac smiled, the simplicity of the truth comforting him like a gentle song. He could feel the mountain's presence in his heart, a steady pulse reminding him that the journey was ongoing, not a singular event, but a lifelong unfolding. Together they walked toward the rising sun, their shadows stretching long across the earth. The mountain stood silent and sure behind them, a beacon of patience and grace. And in that gentle light, Abraham and Isaac knew their journey was forever a dance with the unseen, a blessing held within each shared breath, each quiet step forward. The mountain's song continued, soft, endless, and full of life. The slow rhythm of their steps blended seamlessly with the gentle breathing of the earth beneath them. Abraham looked ahead, eyes softened by years of wilderness and wisdom, and Isaac matched his pace, feeling the weight of the moment crystallize quietly between each footfall. The air carried a hushed reverence, not loud or demanding, but a subtle presence that tucked itself into their bones. It was the kind of silence pregnant with promise, an invitation to lean inward, to listen not only to the world, but to the currents running deep within their own hearts. With the sun climbing higher, the warmth trickled over their skin, not harsh or hurried, but measured, deliberate. Abraham reached out, fingertips grazing the trunk of a cedar tree that stood like a sentinel beside the path. Rest there for a moment, pressing gently into the rough bark, and spoke softly, as if sharing a secret with all of nature. "See how this tree stands," he said, "rooted firmly, its branches reaching skyward. It trusts the earth to hold it, the air to lift it. So too must we trust the unseen forces that carry us beyond what our eyes can measure." Isaac's gaze lifted from the ground. He watched the slender needles quiver slightly in the breeze, their delicate movements promising resilience amid stillness. He felt a new kind of quiet courage beginning to ripple in his chest, an understanding that trust was not a blind leap, but a calm anchoring. They moved onward, feet settling into the soft dust of the mountain path, where small stones whispered stories of ancient journeys. Abraham paused again, picking up a smooth pebble and rolling it slowly between his fingers. "Kindness," he said, "is like this stone softly shaped by unseen waters. It doesn't announce its power with thunder, but it carves and carves, stone by stone, shaping landscapes. A small act, repeated gently, makes the world more whole." Isaac turned the pebble over, feeling the subtle grooves worn by time. He thought of the moments he had thought too small to matter, and then he realized each had been part of a larger pattern, a thread in a vast tapestry woven by quiet hands. Together, they tread with a lightness that respected the land's age and secrecy. The rocks beneath their sandals were cool and steady, while shadows shifted like slow waves beneath the tall pines. Abraham pointed toward a distant ridge, bathed in soft gold light, and suggested their pause there. When they settled upon the ledge, the panorama unfolded, a mosaic of valleys, rivers gleaming like ribbons, and the mysterious silence that only heights can hold. Isaac's breath deepened. Here in this high place, the world seemed immense and intimate all at once. Abraham's voice came as a gentle wind, barely stirring the air. This mountain has stood through storms and sun for centuries. It knows resilience. We do too, Isaac, even when the path feels uncertain. Isaac looked into his father's steady eyes. There was no demand, no rush, only a calm fortitude that invited patience. In that gaze, he found a mirror of his own growing steadiness, a quiet resolve that gathered, like clouds before rain. They remained side by side, absorbing the silence. Time thinned, moments stretched wide, and the world hummed with a sacred pulse. Isaac's fingers brushed the grass, soft and cool, each blade a testament to life's tender persistence. Abraham continued, "Faith is not a fire that burns out quickly, but an ember glowing beneath ash. It requires tending, not for show or noise, but for the deep light that warms you when all else feels still." Isaac nodded slowly, feeling the truth settle inside him like morning dew. He understood now that faith was less about certainty and more about willingness. To keep moving, keep questioning, keep being present. After a long pause, Abraham stood, offering his hand to Isaac. The younger man accepted, rising with a quiet strength they both shared. Together they turned and began to descend along a narrow trail that wound downward through a patch of wildflowers fragrant with earth and sun. As they walked, Abraham spoke of kindness once more, weaving gentle teachings between the rustle of leaves and the distant call of a bird. A word, a touch, a glance, each a thread in the fabric of connection. We can never know which threads will bind others to hope, so we offer them freely, without expectation. Isaac felt the tenderness in the idea, and with every step he carried that thought like a small flame, ready to light the dark places in himself and others. The path curved and dipped, leading them past a quiet spring where water bubbled up clear and bright. Abraham knelt, cupping the cool liquid in his hands and inviting Isaac to drink. They drank deeply, the water carrying the mountain's purity and calm. Refreshed, Isaac glanced upward, noting how the sky had shifted to a soft blue, painted with wisps of cloud like thoughts gently scattered across the mind. Abraham's voice was barely above the whisper of the wind. The journey is not about arriving but unfolding, like these clouds that move and shape without hurry or plan. Each moment invites us to be present, to breathe fully into what is here now. Isaac breathed in deeply, feeling the crisp air settle in his lungs. He understood that this moment, like all others, was both journey and destination. Further down the path, they came upon a quiet clearing where wild herbs mingled, sage, thyme, and lavender, their scents ancient and soothing. Abraham reached out to brush his fingers over the plants, and the subtle perfumes rose like soft prayers to the open sky. "Nature teaches us patience," Abraham said. "Growth takes time, and so does understanding. We are all part of this cycle, learning to bloom in our own seasons." Isaac inhaled deeply, the fragrance wrapping around his thoughts like a gentle lullaby. He felt a tender peace growing within him, a calm acknowledgement that everything unfolds in due time. They rested in the clearing a while, the silence between them filled with unspoken gratitude. Abraham's hand found Isaac's once more, a touch light yet full of steadfast love. Eventually, they rose and continued their descent. As the light softened and shadows lengthened, the mountain seemed to cradle them, its presence steady and sure. The journey, Isaac realized, was not marked by the length of the path, but by the depth of heart's awakening. At the base of the mountain, where the trees thinned and the world broadened into open plains, Abraham paused. He turned to Isaac and said, "This is but one step in our lifelong dance. The mountain remains, as do the lessons it offers, in stillness, trust, kindness, and the slow unfolding of spirit." Isaac met his father's gaze, a quiet smile unfolding. The journey to Mount Moriah had shifted from a test to a tender revelation, a discovery of that inner flame Abraham spoke of, burning steady against all odds. Together, as the sun set behind distant hills, they walked forward, carrying the mountain's patient, enduring rhythm within their hearts. And with each step, the unseen blessings of their journey whispered softly on the breeze, inviting them ever onward into the gentle mystery of life's unfolding grace.